The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
It was a mistake. That was our fault, and we apologize for our mistake.
In your GPS, right, in GPS track, it is completely that you have penetrated to Iran territorial water? How was the Iranian behavior with you?
You were treated well. Was fantastic while we were here. We thank you very much for your hospitality and your assistance.
Didn't you have a special problem?
We
you like falafel?
No, there's no.
You like wearing hijab?
When you have a problem with the boat, you apologize the boat had a problem? No, and there was no looking for any apology. Okay. This was just standard nautical practice.
Biden is either insane or a liar or both. Welcome to the Savage Nation. And he typifies the entire government that we are facing. We the people have an insane, lying government. Welcome to the show. Don't mean to be kind of a copy of Sid Vicious here, but tell me what's more vicious. The Vice President of the United States of America with false teeth saying there was no apology to the terrorist nation of Iran, and then the apology from the captain of that fast riverine boat. Tell me who's crazier. Tell me who's crazier, you or Biden? You, the progressives who have done this to us, or Biden? I want to review this story again today because I was the only one in the media who said the entire thing stinks to high heaven. I haven't seen one person in the United States or world media, including RT, which I go to regularly, by the way. It says, isn't it strange that I don't go to Fox News much anymore? I never go to CNN, maybe once a month. And I go to RT and I get better news. I even get better news on RT television than I do from Fox News. It's primitive. It's 1950s like. The sets are bad. But they're very intelligent. The discussions are amazing. Even they didn't cover this. It looks to me like this was a setup. I still don't believe this was an accident. I think these boats were delivered to Iran by the Obama administration. And moreover, the sailors who gave themselves up so quickly without firing a shot, you want my opinion? You're going to say, well, what would you do if you were in their position? I am not a sailor. I am a civilian. The rules are different. They were not supposed to apologize. They were not supposed to talk about how well they were treated. In fact, they should be tried for what they did. I am not celebrating their return. I think the entire pack of them are cowards. They should be thrown in the brig and be given a court-martial. Nobody has said that, by the way. What kind of government is this? What kind of military have we become? That we allow two boats full of people to not fire a shot and to give up and then be used for propaganda by the terrorist nation of Iran? I'm sorry. I'm right. You're wrong. The rules in the military are different than the rules amongst we civilians. I have never seen anything more cowardly in my life than I saw this display of this apology tour yesterday. And I do blame them. I blame all of them. They're not heroes. But watch. You wait and see. You wait and see what the cafe singer will do with them when they come back. These are the kind of heroes that Obama specializes in. The non-heroes. He'll give them all some medal for having given themselves up without a fight. And by the way, they made the woman wear a hijab. Did you hear that? They weren't treated badly. They forced her to undress and put on one of those throwback outfits. That wasn't mistreating prisoners of war. That's not a violation of their civil rights. There are so many elements to this story that are worthy of discussion that I'm not going to discuss them. If you want to call on it, go ahead. Since we're talking about turkeys, which is what we're talking about, these Navy turkeys, I want to talk about turkeys on airplanes because this whole issue about emotional support animals has gotten out of hand in this country. You're not going to believe this, but a Delta Airlines flight recently had to take a turkey on the airplane because one of the passengers scammed the system. You see, the passenger provided proper documentation providing that the fowl was indeed their emotional support animal. So Delta Airline, for fear of a governmental lawsuit, let the ugly bird on board the plane and even gave it its own seat. You may not know this, but turkeys aren't the only animals used as emotional support animals on flights. Some people have scammed the entire system and have taken horses, pigs, and of course dogs on airplanes. This is all because of the Air Carrier Access Act, which allowed service animals to fly on planes and ensure that they can't be removed simply on the grounds that other passengers object. And so now you've got people who are simply out to upset others. The liberals like to do that. The ruckus types who like to, let's say, hit police horses with bricks, burn down buildings, scream white privilege. This is an extension of that kind of mentality. They're taking turkeys and pigs and horses on airplanes now, or else they will get sued. Now, I got to tell you this. You can buy statements online now saying that your animal is a care animal or whatever it's called for a few dollars. And, of course, there are problems with animals on any kind of plane. It's possible that people are afraid of certain animals or that allergic reactions by other passengers could happen, or about an animal biting a crew member or another passenger. There have been instances of this happening, incidentally. Or the animal could have an accident on the plane, forcing an emergency landing, or forcing a stewardess to get on her knees and clean up the accident. And so this has gotten out of hand. And that leads us to the turkey story. Flying turkey ruffles feathers about emotional support animals on planes. I'm going to open it up to two questions in the beginning of the show. The Navy story which stinks to high heaven. These boats were given to Iran as a gift so their technology could be downloaded, just as the drone was given to Iran a number of years ago by a double agent inside the Obama administration's Air Force, in one man's opinion. To the horror stories of support animals, or whatever you want to call service animal. Let's hear some service animal horror stories. Restaurants. What's the worst service animal horror story you've seen in your life? Let's have some fun with that one in the Savage Nation. And now let's go to the hard news on michaelsavage.com. Top right. Illegal immigrant arrested in murder of Florida woman in Italy. She was found strangled with her head smashed open in her apartment in Florence. She, of course, was an art student. Her father was an art professor. Well, she went there and hung around in the arts expat community, doing what they all do, drugs, sex, and rock and roll. And a few nights ago, she went out to a club with her friends who have nothing to do since they're art students and don't really work. And she didn't go home with them. She went to an after-hours club, and she was seen with a Senegalese immigrant. And the next thing you know, her head was broken open and she was strangled to death, found strangled in her apartment. There's nothing you could say about that other than, isn't diversity grand? Speaking of diversity, ISIS claims responsibility for attack in Jakarta. Speaking of diversity, we read from the Washington Times that China may enter the war against ISIS. Beijing more likely to join forces with Russia than with the U.S. That's an interesting one, Barry. You've sure done a good thing here, putting Russia and China together. That's a really good piece of foreign policy, John Kerry. And for those of you who can't get enough of Muslim refugees, here's another one from the Associated Press. Federal agent says Iraqi refugee wanted to bomb Houston malls. Isn't that nice gratitude on behalf of this piece of garbage, Faraj Saeed al-Hardan, who was welcomed into Texas in 2009 by moronic suicidal liberals? If that's not enough for you, well, there's more. There's much, much more, ladies and gentlemen, on the Savage Nation. Phone number is 855-407-282. Let's go down the list on michaelsavage.com. Oh, here's one for you. Remember a number of months ago, the head of a Bavarian district said to Angela Merkel, the potato-faced communist anti-German, that if she sends any more refugees to that district in Bavaria, they're going to put them on a bus and send them to Merkel's office. They did it. Bavarian districts send a busload of Syrian refugees to Merkel's office in the federal building. Did you know that? No. Germany. Voluntary programs are being offered to teach migrants sex equality and free speech. You see, they come from very advanced lands in Africa and the Middle East, where women are seen as pieces of meat. And the liberals invited them in. The very same feminists who hate white males seem to love third worlders who molest women. Can you figure that out? I can. It's called liberalism as a mental disorder. Would you like to hear a little bit more good news? The New York Police Department was forced, and this is a big story, the NYPD was forced to delete its Islamic radicalization report, caving into the demands of the criminal ACLU. I will read to you what is in that Islamic radicalization report that the New York Police Department had to take down from its website, and you will find out that everything I've been warning you about for these 20 years is 100% true. The progressive left has weakened us, has weakened our defense cells. They are like an autoimmune disease. And into this breach, there enters radical Islam and other crime. Back in a minute on the Savage Nation.
Come on, baby, let the good time roll. Come on, baby, let me thrill your soul. Come on, baby, let the good time roll.
All of America's behind us. President Zero has destroyed everything relevant to the United States of America. He's created a new America. Very much like Pol Pot did when he came back from having studied Marxism in Paris. He created a new Cambodia. And thus far, thank God, we don't have a mountain of skulls. We have a mountain of numbskulls across America. Illegal immigrants screamed, "You have treated me like a dog," before punching and strangling American artists to death in jealous, drug-fueled frenzy after sex in her Italian apartment. Senegalese Chiek de Diagne is accused of aggravated murder of Ashley Olsen in her Florence. Another American blonde goes to Florence to sex, drugs, and rock and roll and gets killed. All right, what's shocking about that? Artist was found dead in Florence apartment by her boyfriend on Saturday. She had 2 fractures to the skull and was strangled with a USB cord. The Senegalese claims he punched her when she told him to leave because her boyfriend was coming back, and he denies strangling her. "I kill her by mistake," he told interrogators after arrest. Devastated family to hold funeral service in Italian city. Okay, it's not you can't make a joke about it. What can you say about it? No, diversity is great. It really is great. The liberals welcome diversity more so than anyone you could imagine. Even when it yields disease, death, it's still wonderful. They put their doxy ahead of their brains. I don't know if they have any brains. How did this Navy ship die out, by the way? How did it go aground? How did it get off course? No one's asking that question. We've gone from SOTU to tofu in two terms of a presidency. From SOFU to tofu in only 2 terms. Of course, that would require some intelligence to know what both acronyms mean. I mean, you all know what SOFU means, right? And you know what tofu means. But we've gone from SOFU to tofu in 2 terms. You're talking about turkeys on airplanes now, turkeys in the military, turkeys in the government, turkeys in the media, giving up without a fight, not firing a gun, nothing. Pentagon says U.S. sailors made a navigational error into Iranian waters. Now, how would that happen? What do you mean they made a navigational error? On 2 boats at the same time? 20 dummies didn't know where they were going? You want to talk about that? Or you want to talk about service animal horror stories? Lance on WJR Radio in Detroit, Michigan. Go ahead, please, Lance.
Yeah, I'm 11 years sober off pot and alcohol. And at our meeting a while ago, a guy would bring his chihuahua to the meeting, which would bite people, bark, disrupt the meeting, and we couldn't get it to stop. And so people...
Well, wait, but maybe the chihuahua needed a drink.
But that's just people that you can get...
What, the chihuahua was a service animal that nipped at everyone?
Yeah.
So how'd you handle it? What'd you do? Stuff him with cake or something?
No, we tried to get him to stop, and they wouldn't allow it. The police said they can't deny him in service animal.
See, well, my point is this. There's no problem with people who are handicapped who need service dogs, or people need a dog for service. You know, there's a convert. But now people, and I've seen it over and over again, are abusing it. They brought a turkey on a Delta Airlines plane, pigs, horses. These are people who like to just get over on others and upset the apple cart. They hate society. They're antisocial, and they're using a federal law that was written to help genuinely, let us say handicapped people, for want of a better word. I know you're not allowed to use the word, but my mind doesn't compute the current word for that. And they're abusing it. So, and no one could do anything about it because the federal guidelines are so stringent that they get sued. That's all. It's that simple. Tom on WMAL, tell us your service animal horror story.
Savage, it's an honor. A goose. I'm an airline.
Stop it. Did you say you were a pilot? Does it say you were a pilot of the plane?
Yes. I'm the pilot of the plane. The gate agent came down and said, I need some assistance. I've never seen this before. You know, obviously, we have two pilots in the cockpit. We both went up there, and she told us that there was a passenger with a goose, and I thought this was a joke. And there was a goose with a leash connected to a harness. A harness went around the whole girth of the bird, and the bird was standing at her feet at the gate, and we're in our uniform, and I said, okay, what's the problem? Well, this is my service animal. I have papers. You have to let me on. And we looked at her, and we said, well, we don't doubt the paperwork. And as you pointed out, people can buy that online, and I don't want to take away from people that actually need service animals. But my first question was, are you telling me you walked through the airport to get to the gate? Did the goose walk next to you? And she said, no, I carried it, but I'm standing here at the gate, so I put it down because it's heavy. And I looked at her, looked at the gate agent, and I said, no, we're not going to accept the bird. There's a health hazard. There's a health issue with that.
Of course there is. They crap all over the plane.
Well, and again, doctor, and again,
did you wait a minute? So you blocked this person with the goose, and what happened? Did she sue the airline?
The conversation. I didn't mean to embarrass anybody, but I was presented with the situation and tried to keep
but Captain, did she then sue the airline?
You need a goose to travel on an airplane. Maybe there's some other issues in play.
You're not hearing me. Again, terrible board operating. Captain, did she sue the airline? Nothing. Nothing back, a one-way street. Instead of 2 Dixie cups in a string, I have 1 Dixie cup in a string.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282.
Come on, let's twist again, like we did last summer. Yeah.
There's another party in the White House tonight celebrating the return of the seized assets to Iran. The, shall I say, cowardice of the sailors. Iran violated the Geneva Convention by showing distressed photos of our men. Of course, we have a commander-in-chief who doesn't want to state anything about the Geneva Convention. I can't let this go. I cannot let this go. I'm sorry. There's something wrong with the whole picture. What about these Navy officers give up like this? They didn't fire a slingshot at them? Nothing? No fighting? It's the military, for God's sakes. All right, you don't want to talk about it. You want to talk about service animals, meatballs. I don't want to do meatballs. No recipes. No recipes. I don't cook anymore. I'm bored of cooking. Those days are over. I don't have the patience for any of that. Who could sit and cook? I cook, though. Once a year now I cook. Supreme Court victory you don't want to hear about. Savage wins in U.S. Supreme Court after 5-year legal battle. It was on Drudge for 24 hours. The whole world of intellect saw it. Anyone with a brain who's into the news saw the story. Of course, it's an important story for people in the media. They should understand that it applies to them as well as to me, but since they detest me, they don't even understand. They'd rather cut their nose to spite their face and make believe it's an unstory. Well, I don't need the publicity. What do I need it for? What's it going to do for me? You think the people in the media want publicity around the clock? Oh, this is a good caller. Come on. Lisa on WMAC in Georgia, you're kidding me. I got to hear this caller. You're a flight attendant? Tell me what someone brought as a service animal. I don't believe it. Lisa, what was it?
It was a bucket of fish.
Oh, come on. They brought a bucket of live fish on a plane and called it a service animal?
Yes, sir.
So wait, you had to take that on the airplane?
Well, it wasn't my flight, but I know for a fact that it was on a flight.
You heard about it from other flight attendants?
Yes.
Well, okay, that's the craziest one I ever heard. Thanks for the call. A bucket of fish. WABC, Eddie, tell us your service dog horror story.
About 2 years ago, I was on a shuttle flight from Boston to New York. a lady comes on, Ole, with a dog, little dog, okay? They had her before. She flies up from Boston back to New York a bunch of times, and the dog, all it does is bark and bark and bark. They told her they had to put a muzzle on it to keep her from barking. She complained, but they said either that or off the plane. They put the muzzle on. Halfway into the flight, the dog drops dead.
Oh!
And, okay, 2 months ago, what do I get? I get a letter in the mail from the airline. Me and everybody who's on the flight, all 62 of us, are summoned to be witnesses to the death of the dog.
And she's suing the airline, this witch?
For making them put on the muzzle, okay?
They should have put a muzzle on the woman.
They should put a muzzle on it now.
They should have put a muzzle and a chain on. Are you kidding me? See, this is what I'm talking about. Maybe her dog was near death and she did this just to have the dog muzzled and die so her lawyer could sue the airline. That's sickening.
The airline told me that there's a question as whether this was a support dog or anything, or whether the dog was a pet of hers that was so damn old, okay, that she couldn't travel with it and couldn't find a kennel.
Oh, I could just imagine what she looked like, but let's not go into that because people will accuse me of misogyny, which is not true. The misogynists are in ISIS, and you don't hear one word from the progressives about ISIS and their misogyny, do you? Not one word from the progressives about the misogyny of the immigrants coming to America. Their cultures are all misogynistic. All of them. All right, that's that. What's the point of talking sense in a crazy world, huh? Sailors new. You want to talk about the sailors? Service dogs? 855-407-282. The flying turkey was what caught my eye. Before I go to the other calls, let me go to the sound. There's a piece here that I put here it is. Our Secretary of Defense, who was the weakest looking man I've ever seen in my life, which is why he was selected by Barry, has just released 10 prisoners from Guantanamo to go back to terrorism. Listen to Mr. Pinktie, our Secretary of Defense, in clip 12.
Just last night, after a deliberate and careful review, we concluded the transfer of 10 Yemenis, roughly 10%, that is, of the remaining Gitmo population, to the government of Oman. And that brings the population to 93. Like every transfer that came before it, the decision to transfer these detainees happened only after a thorough review by me and other senior security officials of our government. As we work diligently to close this chapter in our history, we will continue to, and I believe in this strongly,
I'm sure you do,
value and support the professionalism and the dignity of the men and women.
All right, turn the clown off. Look at this. Look who they have in the government. In my day, a guy like Ash Carter topped what he could have achieved. Maybe after 25 years, he could have moved up to salesman in a men's clothing store. And I'm not knocking it. That's not an easy job, especially around the holidays. So that's why Obama found him and made him Secretary of Defense. Another one, never fired a Daisy BB gun, running the Defense Department. He's sitting up there like a stooge telling us how great it is to return 10 Yemeni murderers to... Now, where is he sending them? To, Oman. That's a very reliable ally right there. I know about Onan. He should have sent them to Onan. It would have been safer than sending him to Oman. He should have sent him to Omeland. Berkeley, California. Omeland. Oman he's sending him to. They're not going to get back to terrorism. It would be a joke. It would be a joke, but it isn't. Then Obama gave a speech today saying, is this the last thing I can squeeze out of being president? He said it again. Is this the new one or the old one? That's the old one or the new one? A new one? He gave another speech about squeezing out of the toothpaste of the presidency. Okay, here he goes again. Here's Barry squeezing in clip 14.
That's what we have to remember. And that's the last question that we have to answer. And the most important one. How do we infuse those principles into our politics? And I said this yesterday and I meant it. I have really enjoyed being president, and I'm going to squeeze every last thing I can get out of it over this next year.
What a despicable lowlife. Listen, I don't want to turn this into an Obama show, but it's almost impossible not to revolt, and it's nauseating. It makes you want to throw up listening to this man, how he's abused the presidency. Let's start with one that you may or may not remember. of what this despicable man has done to the presidency. It may never recover from it. Do you know that he has appointed over 72 personal assistants to his wife to cater to her every whim at your cost? He is the first president to have appointed over 70 personal assistants for his wife, who has also abused the presidency. This is the first president to have gone on over 17, or is it now 18, lavish vacations, in addition to his date nights and Wednesday evening house parties for his friends from Hollywood and the record industry. Again, to have a party in the White House that no one is allowed to see, paid for by the taxpayers. Do you know he is the first president to fly in a personal trainer from Chicago at least once a week at taxpayer expense? Do you know he's the first president to keep a dog trainer on retainer for $102,000 a year at taxpayer expense? No wonder he wants to squeeze everything he can get out of it over the next year. Okay, I'll stop right there. And then he goes on today and says that he's lamenting the polarization in this country. The man has caused it. He's caused it. In clip 15, listen to this man, the toothpaste squeezer. Listen.
My only big regret is that our parties are even more polarized. Our politics are even more rancorous than they were 7 years ago.
Do you have any idea why? Do you know why?
I'm going to keep on trying to do better to see if I can help break the...
You caused it, you creep, you!
But it's not going to happen unless the American people send a clear message to their elected officials
to impeach you.
That's not the kind of politics we want.
You see, this is an example of a sociopathic liar. He causes the rancor. He causes the polarization. He tilts the entire country to the perimeters of the far left. And then he says, gee, why is it so polarized? Why is there so much rancor? I didn't do anything. And he gets away with it, so he keeps doing it and raises the stakes. And now he's mocking everyone. Now he's mocking you, saying, look what I've gotten away with, and I'm going to continue to do it, and you can't do anything about it. Ha, 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 ha. Well, okay, that's how I see it. He has debased the presidency. Can it ever recover from him and his wife? I don't know. The parties, the abuse of power, the lavish expenditures and things of that nature, I don't know. I really don't know. So I don't want to talk about him. Please don't make me talk about him. Don't make me talk about this man. I had to play this for you because he's getting crazier by the day. The day after the address he gave, which was crazy to begin with, he doubles down and he gets crazier. Squeeze every last thing I can get out of it over the next year? I don't know why there's so much polarization. Okay. What do you have to say about ISIS? Anything he's going to do to stop them? Let's hear number 16. Let's see what the great leader has to say about stopping these terrorists. Let's hear that one.
Priority number one is protecting the American people and going after terrorist networks.
Well, you've
That's
done
what
well
we're
on
doing
that.
with ISIL. And for
Did
more
that in
than a
San
year,
Diego,
America's led a
San
coalition
Bernardino very
of more
well.
than 60 countries. We're cutting off their financing. We're disrupting their plots.
Yeah,
We're stopping the flow of terrorist fighters. We're stamping out their ideology.
Man's crazy. There's more of them joining than ever before. They're pouring into ISIS because they know that there's nothing against them but Russia. All right, let's listen to 17 of the great war powers leader. Let's listen to 17.
We have to have a patient and disciplined strategy. It's got to use every element of our national power. It says America will always act alone if necessary to protect our people and our allies, but on a lot of world problems, from climate change to Ebola to Iran trying to get a nuclear weapon, we'll mobilize the world to work with us.
I can't
and we make
take
sure
it.
other countries
when I hear the word mobilize, when I hear the word mobilize, I think of Al Sharpton when he was fat with a megaphone. We're going to mobilize. Mobilize, mobilize. That's an old word from the street people. We're going to mobilize. Yeah. Okay, what would you like to call about? Let's go to the calls on the Savage Nation. KUGN in Eugene, Oregon. Steve, what's on your mind tonight?
Hey, Michael, yeah, I think you need to consider that those SEALs, I think there were SEALs on the sailors, not sailors, they probably completed their mission by dropping off their cargo, which could have been who knows what, equipment, people, and they're on a mission.
Whoa. The woman wasn't a Navy SEAL. They don't take the women in the SEALs.
Yeah. Well, I thought they were in all branches, but I could be mistaken. But
well, whatever. So, what do you mean dropping off the cargo? You mean the boats that they were able to like transfer technology, then give us back the boats? Is that what you're saying?
No. The SEALs were on a different mission to put something in place, and they knew the boats would be caught, so they just let them get caught and cover up the fact that...
Oh, you're looking at the positive side, that Obama's so smart that he tricked the Iranians. Ah. How do you like... I'm sorry I'm not that smart. I didn't know that. The government is so smart that they released frogmen to do things underwater that we don't know about, and then they made a show of getting caught? Oh, I didn't see that. Is this a product of living in Eugene, Oregon, this kind of thinking, or what? Is it the fireplace smoke that's getting to you after all these years? What are you burning in that fireplace? What do they burn up there in Eugene, Oregon, that they think like this? KSFO Nick, we're talking about the lowest point in a U.S. military history, which occurred 2 days ago and is not being covered by Jake Tapperhead. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just think that these combat boats, I mean, there's no reason they should be out that far into the sea. I mean, they're supposed to be operating in coastal waters, not in the middle of the Persian Gulf.
All right, so what's your point?
Well, I'm thinking, I mean, they could have been sent there, and they could have had something on board that they didn't even know they had on board. And then the Iranians pick it up.
I still don't follow you. I don't understand what you're getting at here. What do you mean something aboard?
Well,
what, a delivery of smoked salmon from Zabar's? What do you mean something aboard? Some food they can't get in Iran? A meatball from Little Italy? What do you mean something aboard?
Maybe missile defense technology, anything. I mean, you can put so much stuff on a small hard drive, just tuck it under board, and...
So you're saying it's worse than I think. That they would, but how did they get off course is the question. How did 20 dummies on 2 fast boats not know where they're going and go aground on a sandbar?
It makes no sense to me either. I mean,
20 dummies didn't know they were heading to a sandbar?
They do all day.
All right, that's the new military under Barry Obama and the leadership. Back in a minute.
How do we keep America safe and strong without either isolating ourselves or trying to nation build all over the world? Oh, well, I can't do that. I can't do that because of the Constitution. And I can't do that because Michelle would kill me.
She goes before a largely African-American audience in Louisiana and basically implies that if he was, she screamed, be president again. I can't do that because of the Constitution, because Michelle would kill me. All right. So here's the cover story on the Navy incident. The 10 sailors were held by Iran, right? The Navy is now saying that they made a navigational mistake that led them into Iranian waters, but they didn't communicate that to their commanders before they were being intercepted. In other words, they're saying that the men ran into the waters by mistake and then held it back, didn't report it to their commanders. Well, that seems to me a violation of military law, doesn't it? Doesn't it? The sailors did not radio in to tell their commanders they were off course before encountering the Iranians. They did not report this navigational error at the time, said Defense Secretary Carter in an interview. Really? Then they should be given court-martials. Either one way or the other. Who's lying, Carter or the men who went aground?
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. 855-400-7282. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
And when I said that, by the way, last night, it was strange that some in the chamber didn't agree and applaud with that. I mean, that's kind of a weird thing. I didn't say that it's the strongest in the world because of me. I mean, I understand why they wouldn't want to give me credit for it, which is true. It's because the United States of America for 250 years has been working to make us the strongest, but that should not be a controversial statement.
All right. He was off by 10 years, but that's okay. He's the president of the United States. I'm sure if he went to school, they'd give him A's anyway. We're actually 240 years old as a nation, Mr. Obama. But okay, you didn't learn that at Harvard, and that's not important. Then he said he can't serve 4 more years because Michelle would kill me. But we're not going to do Obama bashing. He bashes himself every time he speaks. Every time the shyster speaks, he bashes himself. So why he doesn't stop, I don't understand, other than narcissism and egomania. Can't he just stop? Can't he shut up? Can't he just shut up and govern? Or do nothing for the rest of the year? Go on another Hawaiian vacation? Get another 70 personal assistants for his wife to show what a great man he is? Can't he just shut up? No. Keeps attacking America. But I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the incident in the naval boats. I want to talk about service animal abuse stories. Is what I want to talk about because I think it's very interesting. And now the military under Ash Carter, who was a disgrace, Secretary of Defense Ash Carter, says that they went aground because they were off course. They made navigational errors, and they didn't report it to their commanders on the mothership, which I told you there was a mothership. No one talks about the mothership. You know what's on a mothership? Attack helicopters, everything you could imagine. They could have been sent within a few minutes to rescue these guys. They weren't told they were off course. So now they're blaming them. So they went off course and didn't report it to their command structure. To me, that is it's an Article something hearing. Shouldn't they see if they did this on purpose? I don't believe that's the case. I believe that's a complete lie. They're using them as fall guys and the one fall girl for something else. There's something else to this story that we don't seem to get any much than we'll ever get to know what really happened in Benghazi under Hillary Clinton or things like that. It's a gigantic cover-up machine. If you actually knew how much money this government spends on public relations agents, you'd be shocked. I don't know if anyone's actually published the figures. Every one of Obama's minions has a PR circle around them of individuals. Then there's a PR budget for the agencies that runs probably in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So when you read a story, you'll hear Jake Tapper or Wolf Blitzer give you a report. They're reading a PR release that is not made to look like a PR release, and they themselves are part of the PR release. That's how it worked in the old Soviet Union. That's how Pravda and Izvestia worked. They were mouthpieces for the government. That's what these people are. They're no different. And so you don't really know the truth. I don't know the truth. All I can use is some kind of deductive logic here. And my logical mind is telling me the story stinks to high heaven. That if they went off course and didn't report it to their higher command to cover it up that they were off course, which I doubt very much, then they're punishable by some kind of court-martial. I don't think that's what happened. And secondly, there's something more to the story with Iran. It was strictly, from my point of view, to make Iran look good. The weekend before Obama gives Iran $70 billion to use to make missiles with. They want us to think suddenly that Iran is a nation run by good people. That they're really not Islamic madmen who have poisoned the entire world with Islamic radicalism. Suddenly they're our friends. Just like Castro is not a murderer. They're our friends. It's all a propagandist ploy, in my estimation, in order to, again, make the American dummy think that there's nothing wrong with giving $70 billion to the nation of Iran in order to just give it back to them so they can build missiles with it. If you want to call on that or the fact that people are bringing crazy animals on airplanes and abusing the whole story of service animals today. We had a story of a turkey on a plane. I think it's worth hearing about. Let's begin in this hour on the radio. I'm going to smash my head through a screen. I have a call screener who's supposed to tell you you're on the radio. You're on the radio, Tim.
Okay, thank you. I speak Persian fluently, and I understand the Persian mentality. And this is nothing more than window dressing for the public. But you just now made this similar statement. And to make them to make both sides look good, that they call
right. Dumb American sailors go off course. They're so stupid that they can't do basic navigation, which anyone running a pleasure boat has to know how to do. And the idiots run aground, and then the wonderful, nice Persians, really the Iranians, the Persians were different, save them and give us back our poor, helpless sailors. Isn't that the whole story?
Yes, don't forget exactly what you just said. Don't forget, those boats are meant to go in shallow water. They used it in the Second World War and also in Vietnam. They go to the coastline. They don't get stuck. They're not meant to get stuck. It's very hard for me to understand and believe that those...
Yeah, these are, oh, by the way, these are very old boats, design-wise. They go back many years. They go back almost to the Vietnam era. And the fact is that they're made for very shallow water. 1 or 2 foot draft is about it. What were they doing in the middle of the Persian Gulf? Can anyone explain that to me?
They went joyride. They want to show something to the world.
No, they can't just take boats on a joyride. They were sent there by their commanders under the instruction of the girl who runs the U.S. Navy, who was under the command of somebody in the Oval Office who got through with a party late at night after partying with her friends in the Obama White House and decided to pull this trick on the world in order to make the Iranians look good. That's what I think. You think we'll ever know the truth? I doubt it. I wonder what these poor sailors are going to go through now. Probably be given medals of honor. 855-400-7282. Something's wrong with this picture. I'm sorry. Well, we can't speculate any further. Have we milked this for all it's worth and gone on to something new now? The service animal may be better. FTL, Mike, welcome to the program.
Uncle Mike, it's an honor to speak with you, especially about this situation, which I swear to God, I always think about you when I deal with this every single day here in Miami Beach, which is a liberal city, and I can understand you when you talk about the cesspool of San Francisco. But anyway, the lying, fraudulent, self-entitled liberals who lie about their phony service animal registrations just so they can prance around with the dog in their arms inside the grocery store.
Oh, Florida's one of the worst. Miami's one of the worst places for service animal abuse.
Yeah.
Well, what's the weirdest service animal that you've seen? Was it a worse than a turkey?
Well, look, first of all, an emotional comfort dog, I did some research, but by the ADA is not a service animal you can bring into a restaurant or a food service, like a grocery store, these natural food stores with a salad bar, the fresh produce out. Women are...
I don't even... Forget about service animals. Salad bars? Are you kidding me? Have you seen what liberals do in Whole Foods and other places? Sticking their hands into salad bars and grabbing out whole handfuls and throwing them in little baggies to take home under their raincoats?
Well, I saw a liberal carrying a dog in a papoose on her chest, leaning into the salad bar, reaching across with the spoon to grab some other food out.
Stop it. What? And the dog was dribbling saliva into the salad bar?
It's just disgusting. And then you can't ask them because they say, you can't ask me about that.
No. They get very defensive.
They buy them on the internet, like you said, for who knows what, but it's everybody.
A few dollars, you can get a service vest. You get a maybe we could start putting them on ourselves instead of dogs, and we can get special treatment. Say we're a service person.
Liberal, self-entitled, pompous. I can do whatever I want to do. Attitude is what.
This started with compassion for people, let's say, who are blind and needed seeing eye dogs. Who would ever complain about that? Nobody. And then we know there are many cases of returning veterans who have PTSD for whom the dog is life and death. That's a reality, a total reality. We understand that. But you know that people are gaming the system. They're bringing pigs on planes, turkeys, snakes. Would you believe this? Actually, they're not allowed to bring a snake on. They're banned from bringing a snake on Delta. The Delta prohibits farm poultry. It allows domestic birds and the turkey. Apparently the turkey is considered a domestic bird. They gave it a seat. They gave it a seat. Maybe we could send it to the White House. It couldn't do a worse job than the president if we put a turkey in the Oval Office. All right, thanks. We're having fun. I know people don't want to listen anymore. Tonight, another debate. I feel like I'm living in the ex-Soviet Union with these staged debates. Why are the Republicans agreeing to all these debates and Hillary gets away with virtual murder? No debates, nothing. Her and that old man, Bernie Sanders, spitting on himself. That's it. That's a debate to her. Bernie the Spritzer. Looks like Larry David's grandfather. Gets up there and does nothing except to make her look like she's not crazier than him. Where are all the debates for the Democrats? They had one person who could have been a president, who I might have considered a great guy, former Navy secretary, by the way. And they threw him off the platform. Why'd they get rid of him so fast? I forgot his name, and I shouldn't. What was his name, Robert? Two people on the other. They know. 2 minutes. Think quickly. Two guys on the end down. One in Oregon, one here. Nobody knows the guy's name. I give people hard questions, like who was the third candidate on the Democrat ticket who was a legitimate patriot, former Navy secretary? Quinn? What's his name? Quinn? Jim Webb. I heard Quinn. That's Jim Webb now. All right, that was quick. There was like 20 questions. Jim Webb, former Navy secretary, veteran. The guy was a legitimate candidate, but he's no longer being in the debates because Hillary couldn't stand a real candidate. So we have like a Soviet system now. Another Republican debate tonight. You're going to watch this? With the Bartolamo, the bowling pin is going to give another set of questions and make an embarrassment of CNBC? And the dumbest man in the history of the media, Neil Cavuto, is going to be there asking questions? I mean, Neil looks like a nice guy. In my day, the most, maybe, a pizzeria. Maybe the top. If the family had money, they would have bought him a pizzeria in Bushwick. And maybe he could have kept it together for a few years. Probably would have had a breakdown from trying to manage the books. All right, but the point is, that's going to ask questions tonight, the two of them? Bartolobomo. Why can't you change your name to something that I can pronounce? Maria Bartle. Maria Bartle. Anyway, I'm not going to watch this debate. It's going to be on after my show anyway. I got better things to do. You know what I'm doing today? Want to hear what I'm doing just for fun? Because you're bored already. I can feel it in my DNA. If you don't have a seventh sense in radio, you're not going to last too long. I can sense you're ready to turn the dial. You're ready to flip. You feel I'm running out of steam. I'm bored of the top. I am. I'm so bored of the topics. I want to start breaking things in the studio. I don't care about service animal abuse. I don't care about the Navy situation right now. What I'm going to do after the show is very interesting. I'll tell you the minute I come back on the Savage Nation.
Eddie, my love, I love you so.
Who's Eddie? Eddie's already 6 feet under.
You'll never know.
Turn it off. I don't know. All this stuff of the 50s is dead to me. America, that part of America is dead. It's over. I'm going to change all the music. I think I'm only going to play. Anyway, I was going to tell you what I'm going to do after the show, because to me it's interesting. And there's a golden rule in talk radio, which I learned in the beginning. I never forgot. If it's of interest to the host, the audience will be interested in it. If you're just faking it and just going through the motions, Democrat, Republican, this and the debate, the do, they're going to turn it off. So that's what I think. What I'm interested in is this. I have a friend who I romanticized in 3 novels. His name is Doc. I hope he's not listening. I hope he's working, because he'd get embarrassed. He has fought in 5 wars, going back to Vietnam, all the way up to the Golden Triangle. I'm sorry, to the Sunni Triangle in Iraq. And his last assignment was as a medic on a 5-man sniper team in the Sunni Triangle. And he and I hang out. He's a musician, practicing psychiatrist. And the man's fought in 5 wars. So I've been kind of telling my publisher about him because I've seen his pictures. Skinny kid in Vietnam, you know, with the buddies, the whole story, all the way up to Iraq, up to the guy I know who's a great musician, an all-around wonderful guy. I mean, we speak to each other sometimes, you know, midnight. I give him a call and we go on and on about life. It's a strange relationship, him and I, but it's a very interesting one. We come from totally different backgrounds, but we kind of like each other. He came from a hippie background in Bolinas, California. It's as hippie as you can get. And yet he's became a warrior. And they asked him, why did you become a warrior? He says, because I have a lot of German in me. He said, I guess I have a lot of fighting spirit. And he became a paratrooper and this and that. So I'm trying to get my publisher interested in his book. And he's coming over to my house after the show, a couple hours after the show. We're going to do a little 3-minute video of me sitting in an armchair. I think I'll post it, actually. And it's going to be filmed from behind my right shoulder like I am just the interviewer. No one's going to see me. They're only going to hear me. And I say, Doc, tell us about your experience in Fallujah when you were a medic with the 5-man sniper team. 1 minute. Tell us about your experience in Vietnam. 30 seconds. Tell us how you went from being a hippie kid in Marin County, California to a warrior. Tell me what you see going on in American politics today and why this book is of any relevance. Then he's got pictures, war pictures of the most mangled, charred bodies you've ever seen in the world. Now, not everyone's interested in that. It's kind of considered like gauche to look at them. But when you see the highway of death with the charred bodies and how we once fought against the enemy compared to this charlatan in the White House, you'll understand why I think this book is worthy of publication. That's what I'm going to do after the show. And then we're going to go have dinner.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282.
Mama said there'll be days like this, there'll be days like this. Mama said,
I'm going to break all these records, they're taking them out of the repertoire. I'm sick of them. I need heavy metal. You know, I live in an area that is so frightening in some ways. It's the most beautiful place on earth. I live near the water. I love to watch the birds. They're congregating now. It's about to rain. You can feel it in the air. And the fish are coming to the surface. I see all of the birds feeding. There's one lone seal that comes down off my house. Poor thing. They don't have any mates or anything. There's no dating service for a seal. He always sticks his head up and looks at me like I'm supposed to throw him a fish. I don't know. He's looking to talk or something. He's lonely, probably wants to come in and have a coffee with me. He's miserable in that water all night long, freezing. No blankets, pillows, nothing. No greenies. But you look at the newspaper, it is shocking that an area with allegedly intelligent people would not have a single newspaper of any value whatsoever. Here's the headlines. Mark Zuckerberg's neighbors miffed by security team. 49ers hire Chip Kelly as next head coach. I don't know who he is. 4 Powerball tickets worth $638,000 each sold in NorCal. Stupid. I never saw anything like this. There's no news. Nothing about the corruption of the Democrat machine. Bicyclist. I was pepper sprayed by driver who nearly hit me. Oh, don't get me started on the bicyclists in the San Francisco area. Here's a hot story that's really threatening. This is one for Obama. Maybe he can send in a strike team. Disease prompts federal salamander ban. Pizza restaurant's bathroom sign gets national attention. I couldn't make titles like this up. It's like insanity. No news. No news at all. Nothing about the corruption or the embarrassment of what happened in the Persian Gulf. Nothing here. Casino buses disrupting the Sunset District. Where do they get the time and the money, all these people, to take these poor old Chinese people to go throw their money away gambling? I see them on these buses. Riders board a casino bus outside of a home on 36th Avenue in Noriega. These poor people work all their life and throw their money away in these stupid casinos. Casino-going litter bugs are causing a headache. As residents say, the bus is contracted to pick up visitors, blah, 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 for local casinos. What's this with casinos? Casinos. What do they do there? I don't even go to does anyone go to a casino for any reason? Who would go to one of these places? Poor people go. They think they're going to hit it big. It's like the racetrack is for losers. Ask any gambler, they'll tell you can't win. Losers go. There's like play the lotto. Who's going to play the lotto but a loser? Security sham. Phony bar camps. KCBS radio veteran dies. Oh, that's sad. Did I outlive another one? Let me see this. How old was he? I always look to see if I'm older than them. I want to see the age. He is morning news anchor for 20 years. Oh, 88. All right. Died peacefully. God rest his soul. Casey wasn't born to died Thursday in my care facility in Alabama. Oh, care facility. I'm never going. Never. No, I'm not going to go to ever. If I get to say anyway, knocked. Don't know who I am, what I'm doing. I'm leaving a note. I'm not going to a care facility later on. Shut up, Teddy. You'll get fired if you do it again. Everyone thinks they're going to live to a ripe old age, that they're full of, strength and vinegar. This dog's getting senile. He's getting old and senile. He doesn't even listen anymore. I hope he doesn't start biting me. They get old, they get senile dogs. They start biting the master. You have to put a muzzle on him. He's liable to die on me. Stop it. I'm on a radio. You know that. You grew up as a radio dog. But everyone thinks they're going to live forever, right? That it's not going to happen to them. They're not going to be like their father or grandfather. And what you wind up is in a wheelchair next to a curtain abandoned by your family for hours at a time. And the illegal aliens who are hired as the attendants in the dirty uniforms, they basically abuse you, humiliate you, take the small change and small bills that your family may leave you for the soda machine. That's how you end up. It's horrible. Just staring at a curtain, unmoving. The whole thing is like, what was I going to say? Not overestimated. It's oversold, old age. I think old age is oversold. Anyone out there who's old and glad to be old? I don't know. Anyone out there over like 90? What's the point of it? What's the point of it? You can't do anything. You don't know who you are. You don't remember anything. You don't know who your family is. It's horrible. That's why a lot of people decide to go out younger. Why am I'm serious now. My father used to say that to me, and he died young. He said, I'll never be disabled. I don't want to lose control of my life. And that's the way it was for those guys in those generations. They didn't want to ever be powerless. Take some callers now. All right, this is a killer call. I swear to God. I'm not making this caller up. Line 2, Mr. Webb on VNN Radio. Webb, what's on your mind?
Well, you're talking about comfort animals. At my college, we had someone a couple of years ago to show up with a comfort rooster. Documentation from some.
What is a comfort rooster? What does it do to comfort the individual?
I have a picture I could even send you. She's just holding the rooster. I guess it calms.
Okay, let's go the other way. Give a description of the woman who needed a comfort rooster.
Well, she was sort of a needy-looking lady, to say the least. A younger woman, actually. And
but what did the rooster do to give her comfort?
Seth Aaron,
okay, this is a family show because what's running through my mind is not palatable for a family show. I mean, there's another word for a rooster that I can't use on the air.
Right. But I wouldn't have believed it had I not seen it, Michael. It was one of the most bizarre.
Well, she sat in the classroom with a comfort rooster?
They didn't let her. They didn't let her bring the animal.
Did she sue the university and say that she was heartbroken because she couldn't bring in her comfort rooster?
She didn't sue us, but she was not too happy. They just refused the request.
Well, she ought to go to work for Obama's EEOC. She's perfect. She could be in charge of the comfort animal brigade.
Okay. Thought you would like that.
All right. Well, that tops. You win the prize. You're getting a free copy of Government Zero. Comfort rooster. Top of the line. Anyone else have a crazy story about a comfort animal? The abuse of this? Because it started with the turkey story. Someone brought a turkey and Delta had to fly the turkey and give the turkey a seat. What's this? Oh, an older person's. Don't get mad at me now. Come on and say I'm attacking the old. I know what's coming now. That's the next thing. There'll be some senior brigades screaming at me with false teeth outside the studio soon, teeth chattering with canes, that I attacked the aged. I didn't do that. I'm not exactly 14 years old. I'm just asking the philosophical question. Who really wants to live into that age? Take a look at that guy in L.A., the one who runs CBS or owns all that. I forget his name. Redstone. He's 90-something years old. Allegedly still has 3 women around him, has sex with them. How at 93? What is he taking? What is he eating? I mean, does he eat the flesh of a comfort rooster at night? I don't understand that one. How do you cook a comfort rooster after you're through with it comforting you? They have very tough meat. Tough? I don't know. You want to live? Yeah, you know, I know guys when I was younger, they'd say to me, they don't want to live past the age of 50. No, when we were kids, I told you, guys would say, hey, you know, he said to me, I don't want to live past 50, some of my father's friends would say, because, you know, you lose your teeth, your hearing goes, your vision goes. There's no point in you losing your... Yeah, but then the guy approaches 50, they raise it to 60. Then he hits 60, he wants to live to 70. No one wants to die. The human condition is that we all want to live. We all have this tremendous life force in us. But with Obamacare, you want to make it political for you. You're not going to live that long anyway in time. They're going to start soil and greening you. They're going to ship you into outer space. They're going to deny you medical care. That's what's going to happen. Who knows where this country's going to go? Could you imagine? Can you look ahead 20 years with the surge of illegals that he's bringing in? Can you look ahead 20 years with the surge of military-age Muslims who are misogynistic that he's bringing in? What's going to happen to this country? Think 20 years ahead. No, don't do it. Don't think 20 years ahead, because it'll really get you sick. That's why people say to me, well, if Trump wins, what do you think one man can actually do overnight? Almost nothing. And then I wanted to cover this topic today, and I've been avoiding it like the plague. I'm going to do it right now. Here it is. It's the people that Obama has put in place that are going to still be there. Let's say Trump wins, and let's say he follows through on 80% of what he promises, okay? You take a look at the people that Obama's planted into positions and you can't get them out except by executive decree. I'll give you one example. U.S. Civil Rights Division, a man named Perez, one of the most fanatical leftists in the history of the world, was put in there by Obama as a virtual poison pill. He is putting in laws to make businesses almost inoperable. Virtually everything is a civil rights violation to him. How are we going to get rid of bureaucrats like that are now running the federal government, even if he wins? And I could go a step further. I'm going to make this a very interesting topic, so you better call quickly on this. Jim, this is the only topic, Jim, that I want calls on, Jim. Here it is. The ACLU, one group. CAIR, another group. Southern Poverty Law Center, another group. Name the 10 most dangerous leftist extra-governmental organizations that need to be taken down when Donald Trump becomes president. Name the 10 organizations that have done and are doing the most damage to the American way. Name the 10 organizations that you know of need to be exposed. The leadership needs to be called before Congress. Their funding needs to be traced to all sources, and we need to examine them, break them up like the old monopolies they are, break up these leftist organizations to save America. The number one head of the snake is the ACLU. They must be broken apart. Now, if I say to you the way to do it is to start with a UAC investigation, I know what's going to happen. That's the House of Un-American Activities Committee. The left will go insane. They'll say you're violating our civil rights, that you do not have probable cause to bring people in to investigate them. And they may be right. So tell me how a society that is open like ours, that is democratic like ours, survives when you have enemies of freedom, enemies of democracy, destroying society by using the very freedoms that we have in place because of the Constitution. Tell me what you would do. This is the conundrum we are facing. This is probably the most important question of our time, which is how do you protect civil liberties if you even want to put that above everything else? I mean, should you put civil liberties above survival? Because without survival, my friends, what good are your civil liberties? That's the problem. And that's going to lead us down roads we may not want to go, but I want to go down these roads with you now. How do you get rid of the ACLU, the Southern Poverty Law Center, CAIR, and all the damage they're doing, in my opinion, to this country, and name the other organizations that are doing damage that I may have not listed? Okay? That's what I want to do for the next 15 to 20 minutes on the Savage Nation. Back in a moment. All right, so look, here's your chance to shine on the Savage Nation and make a difference. I say this. There are very dangerous left-wing groups that have undermined our entire society. Chief amongst them is the ACLU. I would say second amongst them would be CAIR. That's my opinion. Running a close third would be the Southern Poverty Law Center. What other groups do you think need to be investigated by the new Congress come 2017? And investigated for, let us say, subversive activities to undermine the Constitution and the American way. I know these are very loaded statements, very powerful statements that are sure to rattle the nerves of everyone, both right, left, and center, including libertarians. But I'm going to talk about them because as far as I'm concerned, just getting a new president has some meaning. Look at what one man has done to this country in only 7 years. Okay? So one man can make a huge difference, especially when he's as demonic and as anti-American as Obama. Huge difference, one man. So one patriot can make a big difference. But they're going to need our help. We're going to have to advise the new president, who I hope will be Donald Trump, in a landslide against the old hag. When Trump wins against the old hag in a landslide and sends her packing back to Arkansas, we're going to have our work cut out for us. And that's going to be, name the organizations that we want investigated. I've named a few. Who would you name? KBET Radio. Mike, go ahead, please. Who is, in your mind, undermining the American way? Which group?
La Raza, the race. Here in Las Vegas, they're destroying our schools. We're the number 50th school system in the country now.
Do you know that the former head of La Raza, a woman with the name of Cecilia Munoz, M-U-N-O-Z, one of the most radical individuals in American political history, is now sitting inside the Oval Office as a special advisor to Barry? Did you know that?
Unbelievable.
She was moved in there within the last year by Barry. She did such a good job undermining America that he rewarded her by bringing her into the Oval Office itself. This is how far the boll weevils have gone. This is how far this government has been penetrated. So thanks for putting them on the list. Who are the other groups that you think are undermining the American way? Now, don't just throw a name out without thinking. And don't put up names that are going to get us all in trouble. We're talking about radical, left-wing, anti-American, anti-social order organizations who spend every waking minute thinking how they can disrupt and destroy the society. That's what we're talking about. WJJF Radio. Lori, who's on your list? Lori, are you there? No, nobody there.
One group is we're actually paying for is worse than Acorn ever could have possibly have been, and it's called Welcoming America, and it's an initiative rolling out across the country, and the progressives are going into individual cities, mostly inner cities, where they can get enough support because there's so much tax dollars going into this organization to welcome immigrants, illegals, and to set them up on welfare, to provide all of the services that they provide. And so all of the nonprofits have their hands out to service.
Got it. Okay, let's look no further. We're looking now for a list of the most anti-American, the most disruptive anti-American progressive so-called organizations in America that need to be completely uncoupled and exposed by the next president. Look no further than those who have received direct funding and assistance from George Soros and his so-called Open Society Institute. Here they are. Advancement Project, All of Us or None, Alliance for Justice, America Coming Together, America Votes, America's Voice, American Bar Association, Commission on Immigration Policy, American Bridge 21st Century, the ACLU, American Constitution Society for Law and Policy, American Family Voices. I can name many more of them. These are the groups that should be investigated when Donald Trump becomes president.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Well, hopefully we'll soon be rid of this left-wing band of anti-Americans, hopefully. But they will leave behind in their wake, deeply implanted in the federal government, in academia, and in the news media, their cohorts. And so don't expect big changes even should Donald Trump win by that big landslide against that fabulous human being, Hillary Clinton. The question I'm asking, I think, is an important and interesting one, which is this. Name the subversive organizations or the organizations you consider to be so far off the ken of the American way that they are in fact subversive, meaning that they spend all of their resources going against the wishes of the taxpayer. That broadens it quite a bit, doesn't it? Now, many of them are funded by George Soros, not all of them. So let's see what that would include. What do the taxpayers want? Does the average taxpayer want more immigrants or fewer immigrants? You know the answer. Most want no immigrants. So you have groups that are working around the clock to bring in floods upon floods, a virtual tsunami of an undigestible amount or number of refugees, immigrants, whatever you want to call them, especially from third world nations that hate us. People who will never, ever integrate into this society, who will spend their every waking minute hating the society, many of whom will go off like rockets. So those groups would be on the top of my list. The top of that list is the ACLU. That's the head of the snake. In fact, if Donald Trump becomes president, I'd like to be appointed as the special prosecutor for this committee. And I'd like to bring the heads of these organizations up for a little questioning by me, and they can defend themselves and say, we're not subversive, we're not anti-American, we just believe in immigration. Oh, really? Where do you get your funding from? How much of your funding comes from foreign governments? How much has the Mexican government contributed through front groups, for example? There are other organizations, and I'd like you to try to name some of them. I named them in the last hour, and I think this is perhaps a very important topic and one that will be a continual theme of this show throughout the coming months. So let's go to the callers now. On which groups do you think are, if you want to call them subversive, that's a loaded term, that's fine, because some are outright subversive. George Soros spends all of his money on subversive elements in this country. How else would you explain a man who funds organizations that wants to flood America with Muslim men of military age from Syria and call anyone who opposes it a racist? What would you say? That's healthy for the nation? Tell that to the women who were raped over there in Germany over New Year's Eve, if I'm making this up. What other organizations? You name them. Who are they? KSFO John, who's on your list?
Hey, Doctor. Thanks. You've hit on just a huge point, and you're absolutely right with Soros. Hillary Clinton and John Podesta are alleged principals in the creation of the Center for American Progress. And Podesta, he was the one who, didn't he for like 18 months manage President Obama's revolt against the election? And now he's Hillary.
Podesta is a special advisor. He's one of the most dangerous snakes in the entire administration. There's no question. He has the enemy's list. He runs the enemy's list for the Obama administration. He's an all-around fabulous American. But he's an individual, not an organization. So I would say, which organizations do you think are dangerous for the survival of America? Who has done the most damage to the American way? Which organizations need to be investigated by the new government in 2017? These are important questions that I think need to be asked right now. I think we need to plan ahead, and I think we need to get them in our sights. I think we need to start collecting dossiers on these individuals. I think we need to start getting the names and the names of the organizations and get them in the hands of Donald Trump's campaign managers as soon as possible. So when he is elected and when he's inaugurated, day one, he goes after these subversive organizations in order to stop the downward spiral of the United States of America. That's my speech. That's what I truly believe from the bottom of my heart. Because we could say all the things we want from today until kingdom come. It's going to make not one bit of difference. These lawyers have twisted the laws so that you can't even defend yourself against them. And that's another thing that needs to be looked at. The American Bar Association itself is a subversive organization. If you look at what they have done, who they protect, and who they prosecute. So that's another organization that needs to be looked at. Will anything happen? I don't know. I have no idea where this can go. I don't know if Donald Trump is going to win. I know that none of the other candidates are capable of going after these organizations. How's that? And that, my friends, is why Trump is so hated by the far left and why the media keeps smearing him. They know that the people around Trump will go after them for what they have done to this country. They know that their funding will be cut off, and worse yet, some of them may actually be indicted for crimes against the laws on the books right now. What other organizations do you think have done harm to the American way? In plain English. Okay, MAL, Dave, you're next up. Name the organization.
Black Lives Matters has to be on the top of the list. I want to know who's funding them and who's organizing these agitators that are ruining them.
As far as I know, George Soros funded Black Lives Matter. He's one of the chief funders of this organization that does everything it can to undermine the American society, disrupt and undermine American society under the guise that all black people are victims.
Public enemy number one in my book.
Well, okay, so you name Black Lives Matter as an organization. Very good selection. Let's keep going here. Let's see what other people have to say and why. Dave on WMAL, name an organization you think is let's say, un-American and acting in a subversive manner, an organization that needs to be looked into. What would that be?
Planned Parenthood. They do nothing as far as women's health goes, they just ruin lives. They're nothing but slaughterhouses. They do nothing for women's health.
Well, this is an interesting question. I don't know that you can declare Planned Parenthood as a subversive group. I would say it's an evil group. Any group that basically is in the business of selling baby body parts is a very evil group. I think they could be handled very easily with a new Congress by having their funding cut off completely. I don't even think you have to investigate Planned Parenthood. You can just cut them off at the funding level. They'll be out of business before long. So I wouldn't even waste any money on them. I would just defund them, and that would be the end of them. That's like defanging a snake. WCFO in Georgia. Brian, who's on your list? Go ahead, please.
Hey, right in our backyard, we have the Carter Center, which is Jimmy Carter's outfit. And what really caught my eye 10 years ago was when he rubber-stamped the Venezuelan elections, calling them very fair. And we know that Chavez, who's been totally anti-American for decades, got the good, upstanding vote from Carter.
Jimmy Carter has been a lifetime subversive, in my opinion. An all-around snake of an individual who's spent millions of dollars on public relations imagery in order to make us think he's a kindly, grandfatherly guy. I don't see him as that. I know what you're talking about. When Chavez, the dictator, was in that country, it was Jimmy Carter who went over there to certify it and stamp it as a legitimate election when we all know it was a rigged election. That's what you're talking about. But have they done and are they doing in the Carter Center, in your opinion, any further damage here in America to the American way?
I would say that they're disrupting the American Israeli, long-standing, relationship with their continued support of an independent Palestinian state. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy Carter is a lifetime Israel hater. That we know. That's his stock in trade. He's gotten very far with that. I guess it would be a legitimate question to see what money he's getting from a named terrorist group, if in fact that turns out to be the case. Is he receiving money from Hamas or Hezbollah through a third party? Don't know. Thanks for the call. Interesting topic. Back in a minute. The latest NBC Wall Street Journal poll, by no means a reliable poll, but it's what it is. Trump more than doubles national lead in NBC WSJ poll, which is very good news. If there was an election today, it would be a landslide, 85-15 against the old woman. And he's going to win by a landslide when he runs. And, I keep hearing amongst polls with African Americans, who you'd think would all be Democrat, even he said that it was 25% of African Americans self-identify as interested in voting for him. That means that it's probably double that. Because there are people who, when they're polled, would never even admit who they're going to vote for out of embarrassment. Okay? I think it's going to be one of the greatest landslides in American history. So I'm going past that. I'm the architect of the new America. I have been in my last two books. I'm a leader in thinking. You know that. I know someone to get mad. You know, how dare you say it? Well, I'm saying it. You don't write books to become bestsellers if you're not a leader in thinking. If you read it all before, you wouldn't buy the book. So in the book, Government Zero, I have many, many points, 40 points, of how to save America. What you're hearing about today is not in that book, because I haven't thought about it till today, which is this. When Trump wins in a landslide, and when the new government takes power in 2017 now, we're going to be faced with a huge problem, which are all of the boll weevils that Obama has planted like poison pills throughout the federal government. And then, of course, we have the organizations that we know are subversive, like the ACLU. I've named some of them. I'll name them again just for effect. Which organizations do you think need to be investigated by congressional committees when the new Congress convenes and taken down, taken apart, and defunded? But more than that, if there is evidence of criminal activity along the way, punished for what they have done, are doing, and would do further to damage this nation. Because there are many organizations whose every waking moment is about disrupting the social order, attacking white people. You know what I'm talking about. Don't pretend it's not going on, and don't pretend Obama's not funding most of them. He specializes in this. They're his bread and butter. He is their bread and butter. He is diverting billions of dollars to them in order to continue to attack us. I'm getting very clear here, am I not? Suddenly you hear clarity? You know what's going on? So I'm asking you to participate. Which organizations do you think are subversive and need to be investigated by the new Congress? Thomas on the Internet, welcome to the program. Name it. Your organization is?
Yes, the National Lawyers Guild, as the 1958 congressional hearing on un-American activities disclosed and exposed, that the National Lawyers Guild and American Bar Association were funds for the Communist Party, as well as, APAC, and there's a few ADL. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity.
All right, he's right. The National Lawyers Guild is one of the most dangerous activist groups in the country. Every one of them is an enemy of the American way. Every last lawyer in the National Lawyers Guild is the type of lawyer that you have come to hate, in plain English. Now, they will tell you, oh, they're just for the underdog. They're for the poor immigrant. Well, you know what? That may be so. But I'm for the middle class. I want a lawyers guild for the tax-paying middle class, not a lawyers guild for the subversives who are bringing in refugees, immigrants, whatever you want to call them, by the tens of millions. If you want to know what this country will look like in 10 years, if this is not stopped, all you got to do is look south of the border. And then all you got to do is look in Fallujah. And then all you got to do is look in Somalia, and you'll have some picture of what districts or whole regions of inner cities will look like in this country unless these subversive groups are, in fact, not exposed and stopped. Now, what is wrong with my statement? KSFO Mel, what group would you say is subversive?
Catholic Charities, especially as I see it in Central California.
Hold it. You said Catholic Charities. Now, the problem with this is that A, you're right, and B, most people would say, how can you attack a church? You know the answer to that. Catholic Charities is not a church, is it?
No. I'm a big-time Catholic, and this doesn't really reflect
Catholic Charities is not a church. It uses the word Catholic in it, but it has as much to do with Catholicism as the moon does. Catholic Charities is a non-profit organization that uses the handle of Catholicism to subvert America's immigration laws. They have, they are, and they will continue to flood America with illegal aliens. I suspect that, I would agree with you. All of these groups, they're not alone, though. There's Baptist Charities, there's Baptist Family Services. All of these church-related names of 501c3 organizations need to be investigated and stopped, along with the others that we're talking about. I think this is a fabulous show topic, and I'd like you to join the program and name your organization, the organization, rather, that rankles you, the one that's been eating at you for years that you know is doing harm to this country. Now, what do I mean by harm to the country? You see, now, here's an interesting question. People would say, well, they're just liberals. They're pushing the liberal philosophy. You're a conservative. You like conservative ideas. Okay, that would be a fair statement. But when you are using your organization to go against the will of the people and to go against the voters themselves, which these organizations do, then they are, my friends, subversive in the sense that they are subverting the will of the majority of the American people. You cannot disagree with my logic. It is flawless. What I just said is flawless logic. It doesn't matter whether you agree with Catholic Charities or the ACLU or the American Bar Association or the American Lawyers Guild, National Lawyers Guild. What matters is what they are doing goes against the wishes of the majority of voters in this country. And that's why they have to be investigated, defunded, and if any criminal acts have been found, if any criminal acts are found to have been conducted, prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that when this show is circulated around this nation, and it will be, you're going to see things happen that you cannot believe. This show may not be the largest in talk radio, but it is one of the most influential. And by the way, I just won that case in the U.S. Supreme Court after a 5-year battle. It was on the Drudge Report for 24 hours. Everyone has seen that story. Everyone knows a few things as a result of it. And make no mistake about it, they're all listening to this show on a regular basis. They're not calling me a disc jockey anymore. They're not trying to make fun of me anymore. They shouldn't. They should take me very seriously.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
About the emerging totalitarian Soviet states of America as a result of Barack Obama's leftist fanatics in the administration. How's that for a statement? Does that summarize it fairly well? And so you have to look at the American left and what they have done, what they would like to do to this country. In the political sphere right now, the clearest exemplar of the radical left would be Barack Obama. He's gotten much further than anyone could ever have imagined they would have ever gotten in such a short period of time. And that's because he's such a silk-smooth salesman for the American left. And so we have to look into that right now. Now, running on the presidential platform, Bernie Sanders is an exact picture, a literal stereotype of the American left, going back, I would say, to the ILGW era of the International Ladies Garment Workers Union. He's a classic low-grade garment workers union, a community agitator. So you want to look at the American left. You look into the civil rights movement, the war on poverty, the new left of the time, some of whom have now become great conservatives in their own mind. You'll see there's a Communist Party USA. They've disguised themselves now. They're running purely as Democrats. There was the Socialist Labor Party. There were overt Marxist-Leninist groups like the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, the Progressive Labor Party, the Revolutionary Communist Party, the Workers' World Party, but none of them really exist in that form anymore because they've been morphed into Barack Obama's administration. You then had Trotskyites who ran things like the Freedom Socialist Party, Socialist Action, Socialist Workers' Party, Solidarity, the Spartacus League, the Workers' International League, but they're all small splinter groups right now because most of the leaders have been absorbed into the Obama administration. You then look at the anarchist and anarcho-syndicalist parties in the United States of America, the Green Party, and most of them have become very, very small because the leadership has been absorbed into the Obama administration or have been given jobs on MSNBC and other media outlets. So let's look into this in a little more detail for 2017 because we're going to have a lot of work on our hands in order to uncouple them from the social sphere. So let's see where this began. It began long before the 1960s. We had what we would call a socialism in the United States, a socialist type of movement in the United States of America. In fact, the first European socialists to have arrived in America were a Christian sect known as Labadists, who founded the commune of Bohemia Manor in 1683, 60 miles west of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And they led a communal way of life, which was based on the communal practices of the apostles and early Christians. The first secular American socialists were German Marxist immigrants who arrived following the 1848 revolutions. So now I want to move forward into our century and bring us up to our time, so we understand how deeply we have been penetrated by the fabulous left of the world and what they have done to this country. Many of you feel it, you sense it, but you don't know where it's coming from. So let's go into the 1960s, the civil rights movement, the war on poverty, and the new left. And you'll find out exactly who they are and exactly what they have done and exactly what they want to do in the future of the United States of America. So where shall we begin? This could take hours for us to do this. Some of these names may be familiar to you, such as the Students for Democrat Society, Tom Hayden. New Left Students for Democratic Society, SDS. It had activists such as Tom Hayden, who was related to Jane Fonda, as you may remember. Those are distant memories, right? Well, then you had groups like Marxism, Leninism, the Progressive Labor Party. Then in the 1970s, there emerged the Black Power movement and the hippie movements. Now, that's possibly where we should begin today, because the Black Power movement of today, as exemplified by the Black Lives Matter street thugs, in my opinion, is an offshoot of the early socialist, communist, anarchist movements in the United States of America. And if you don't understand your history, you're condemned to repeat it. But that's what we're living through right now. What about the hippie movement? Well, I think that speaks for itself. Many of them are now running the media, running the government, and running academia. Doesn't that tell you all you need to know? So look into that, and you'll see where the bridge is between anarchism, socialism, Marxism, and progressivism. And you'll find out that you can say that Bernie Sanders' current campaign represents completely everything I've just told you about. He, in fact, calls himself a democratic socialist who's running as an independent. But he's never really been a democratic socialist. He has always been a radical fanatic. Always. And you must understand that. But there are others in the government and others in organizations, such as Occupy groups, Occupy Wall Street, for example, the Occupy movement, all offshoots of this radical leftism I am talking about. And so ask yourself now what I'm talking about and why I'm talking about it, because I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking ahead to when Donald Trump wins by a landslide in the election come next November, and when he takes office in January of 2017, that's when his hard work will actually begin, because none of these organizations will be gone. In fact, I can guarantee you as I sit here, their nests are being feathered by the Obama administration as quickly as possible to make certain that they are untouchable, like the 5 families once were in the United States of America. These left-wing groups are far more damaging than any organized criminal organization the nation has ever seen in terms of the damage to the social order. That is a definitive blanket statement that I can support with pages upon pages of references, but I can't do it in a talk show on the cuff. I think I've done a pretty good job verbally. One day I'll do it in the written form, but right now I'm going to continue to give you a thumbnail sketch of the dangerous leftist organizations in the United States of America and those groups that need to be looked into when Donald Trump becomes president and defunded and investigated for criminal activity. There are other groups, and you can name them if you want. I've named some of them. Some of them you may know. Some of them you may not know. But let's look into them together. What groups have I not mentioned so far that you think would be worthy of investigation by a new government in order to save the fabric of our society? Anybody have any ideas? Let's go to KKOH in Reno. James, who's on that list for you?
Hello, this is Father James. I'm Serbian Orthodox priest, and I agree with you, and I believe NPR and Media Matters, the propaganda organizations for the state we don't want.
Yes, Media Matters is funded primarily by George Soros. It was run in cahoots with Podesta. It was closely tied to Hillary Clinton during the period that I was banned in Britain, and I think their fingerprints are all over the smear campaign against me and many others in the conservative movement in the United States of America. I agree that they should be at the top of the list. They're amongst the most evil anti-Americans in the United States today, in my estimation, Father. Now, why are you, as a man of religion, interested in this? What have they done to you?
Well, I just see them their propaganda affecting people. And so it's become so much a part of their fabric of thinking that it's hard for a person to get out of it. Yeah.
Okay, it's a cult. These leftist groups are like a cult, and they then feed on each other. They sit around smoking pot, drinking cheap wine, and then they start talking to each other with a joke of how they can get over on society, what they can do to disrupt the vote, what they can do to stuff ballots, what they can do to vote 10 times, what they can do to have illegal aliens vote, and then they start feeding on each other of, Robbie, what would you do? How would you do it? Mary, how would you do it? And then one builds upon the other because no one's ever slapped them down. No one has ever come along and slapped them down for the damage they are doing to this nation. That's what I have to say to you. But many of you have missed some of the most important of these left-wing organizations, and we have one now on WDRC Radio. Ron, who's on your list of organizations that have done grave damage to the social order?
Yes, the Honorable Reverend Al Sharpton and the...
Yes, how could we forget that friendly Al Sharpton, and the name of his group is?
NAM, National Action Network.
Right. And how many times has this fine human being been invited into the White House by our even finer president? Does anyone know? Can you? And what damage has this organization done to America in your estimation?
Oh, it's been endless. How many decades? If you Google his name, and he has, under his name, he's become Barack Obama's go-to black leader. And now he's blasting Hollywood, which is a joke in itself.
Can you believe that it was Al Sharpton, a street agitator, who nominated Loretta Lynch to become our Attorney General? Can you imagine that?
I'm not surprised with this.
This is how deep these people go in their damage to the social order of this country. And unless they are turned back in 2017, there is no hope for this nation. That's why I'm not going to sit here bellyache about Democrat, Republican, and Barack Obama. Forget about it. I'm looking ahead, and I'm telling you what needs to be done. This is one man's opinion. Remember what I do for a living. I do talk, but I also write. And in order to write, I have to think. And in order to write books that are viable, I have to be ahead of the curve. So I'm just telling you what needs to be done. And I'll tell you something else. If you'll help me put this list together today and in the ensuing weeks and months on the Savage Nation, I will make sure it gets into the right hands in the right campaign. Let's put it to you that way. And if you have any evidence of criminal activity by any of these organizations, we would be especially interested in it. It's one thing to say you don't like their politics, and I can understand that. But it's another thing to say, you know, Michael, I once worked for them, or my sister worked for them, and I happen to know that they were doing this, they were doing that, they were stealing funds, they were that, they weren't paying taxes, they're supposed to be nonprofit, they were living high on the hog, they got money from Russia, they got money from China, they got money from Indochina, they got money from Indonesia, they got money from the moon, they didn't report it, I can give you the proof. Oh, please, save it for me, will you please? And we'll get it into the right hands at the right time. Now, at some point today, and I don't think I'm going to have the time, I want to go in the same direction, but from another approach. What I have been saying for the last hour and 20 minutes on the Savage Nation is quite revolutionary to many people. They're going to say, what, is he crazy? Is this right-winger nuts? He's going to help the government, the new government, go after these legitimate social organizations? Well, are they legitimate, and are they social organizations? I would argue that many of them are not legitimate. They may be legal, but that doesn't make them legitimate social organizations. There's a lot of things that are legal that I disagree with, and this is one of them. Just because you have a legal organization and you're working around the clock to promote, let's say, activities that are immoral or antisocial doesn't mean that I have to agree with you. And I think that any new administration that cares about the middle class has to investigate you. So I would suggest, if any of you are members of these organizations, that you really get your books in order and you really start making certain that you're not vulnerable to any kind of federal investigation, because you have had 7 of the best years of your life. And let me tell you something. After your protexia is gone from the White House, all bets are off. As a man who has been blacklisted by the British government and blacklisted by Fox News, I know something about blacklists. And something the American left has not experienced in 50 years is being on such a blacklist. And there are such groups that need to be investigated for the damage they have done, are doing, and will do unless they are stopped by a new Congress in 2017. So let's name some of them in addition to the names I've given you. Are you ready for them? American Society for Muslim Advancement, Alliance for Democracy, Amnesty International, Center for American Progress, Center for Media and Democracy, Center for Science and the Public Interest, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, Citizens Action, Citizens Fund, Color of Change, Common Assets Defense Fund, Cordoba Initiative. Let's see. I'm going down a list and coming up with some names that you may recognize of organizations that I consider to be very, very left-wing and worthy of investigation. Media Matters for America, MoveOn.org, ProPublica, funded by Soros, ProPublica Inc., Netroots Nation. Some would include the Service Employees International Union as a subversive organization, the SEIU. And by the way, the president of that organization, that big union that gave us Governor Brown, said 2 weeks ago that she was shocked that 64% of her membership is interested in voting for Donald Trump. So don't assume that the organizations they control are composed of members who also want to undo the American way. The Tide Center, the Tide Center Projects, Tides Foundation, Transnational Resource and Action Center, Turning Point Project, Youth Empowerment Center. Now, those are just some. How about when we look into the American religious left and its funders? This gets very interesting. It's like a spider web. The Rockefeller Brothers Fund, the Lilly Endowment, the Bain Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Blue Moon Fund, the Joyce Foundation, the HKH Foundation, Dolan Charitable Trust, Vanguard Foundation, Arca Foundation, Saul Alinsky Back of the Yards Community Council, National Hip Hop Political Convention, the Cuban Council of Churches, Pastors for Peace, Progressive Religious Partnership, People for the American Way, Interfaith Alliance, Interfaith Worker Justice, American Friends Service Committee, Clergy Leadership Network, America Coming Together, National Council of Churches, Interfaith Center on Corporate Responsibility. I'm just giving you a little sketch of the radical American left to explain to you how we got where we are and who the head of the snake is. The head of the snake is enjoying himself in the White House. These are all of the grassroots groups that have worked for so many years to give us what we now have, which is a debased military, a debased America, and the best is yet to come, according to the leader of the free world, Barack Obama, who gave a speech today saying he is going to squeeze the last drop of the year out of the year to make all the change he possibly can. I hope you get the drift. I hope you understand that our real work begins after Donald Trump wins by a majority landslide of 75-25 and the Congress convenes in 2017. Good night.
Savage.